had $47 in my bank account and a credit card bill I couldn't open anymore. Not because I was irresponsible, not because I was reckless, but because life got expensive faster than my paycheck ever could. And the scariest part? I thought I was doing everything right. I had a job, I had a car, I had a place to live. I was doing what everyone told me to do. Spend, participate, keep up. And somewhere along the way, I looked up and realized I was completely underwire. That was a few years ago, and I've spent every day since trying to understand how it happened. Not just to me, but to millions of people across this country who are living the exact same story right now. Because here's what nobody wants to say out loud.
The American economy that everyone keeps bragging about, the record stock markets, the low unemployment numbers, the soft landing the Fed keeps patting itself on the back for. A massive chunk of it is built on debt. Consumer debt. Your debt. My debt. Borrowed money that's being spent like it's real wealth. And I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because I wish someone had said it to me before I learned it the hard way. Let's start at the top, because you can't understand what's happening in your own wallet without understanding what's happening at the government level first. The United States is now carrying more debt than any country in the history of human civilization. We crossed $38 trillion in national debt, and that number is almost too big to feel real, so let me make it feel real for you.
We are now spending $1 trillion a year just on the interest. Not paying it down, not reducing the balance, just the interest. We're spending more money servicing our debt than we spend on national defense, more than we spend on income security programs, more than we spend on veterans benefits. The interest payment alone has become the fastest growing expense in the entire federal budget. It jumped 34% in just 2 years. And here's the thing about watching your government do something. Eventually, consciously or not, people start to mirror it. Because if the most powerful financial institution in the world can run on borrowed money and still keep the lights on, why should regular people feel any different about doing the same thing? And that's exactly what happened. The average American is now carrying over $90,000 in personal debt. Total household debt in this country has exploded 60% in the last decade alone. We're sitting at $18.6 trillion, the highest number ever recorded in history.
Now, I know when you hear numbers that big, your brain kind of goes numb. So let me break it down into the pieces that actually affect your daily life. Not all debt is the same. I used to lump it all together in my head. Debt was debt. It was all bad. It all stressed me out equally. But that's not how it works. There's a real difference between the kind of debt that can build something and the kind that quietly destroys you. Mortgage debt, for most people, sits on the less dangerous end. Yes, total mortgage balances in America have hit $13 trillion. That's a staggering number. But a mortgage is tied to an asset. If things go really sideways, you have something to negotiate with. You have collateral. It's not good debt in the feel-good sense, but it's structured debt. Home equity lines of credit are a little more interesting. They've jumped over 30% since 2021. The fastest rise since before the 2008 financial crisis. People are pulling cash out of their homes. And while the total is still relatively contained, the trend line is the part that should make you raise an eyebrow.
But then you get to the stuff that kept me up at night. The stuff that I watched silently spiral in my own life before I even understood what was happening. Student loans. I remember signing those papers at 18 years old like they were a formality. Like it was just the thing you did to get the thing you needed. Nobody sat me down and said, hey, you're about to take on a debt that will follow you for decades, that you can't discharge in bankruptcy, that will compound while you're still figuring out how to do your own laundry. There's now $1.7 trillion in total student loan debt in this country. 44 million Americans still owe money on their education. The average balance is $37,000. And a year ago, less than 1% of borrowers were seriously behind on payments. Now that number has jumped past 9%. 9%. In 1 year. And unlike a car or a house, you can't sell your degree when you're struggling. There's nothing to hand back. You just carry it.
But even student loans aren't the thing that worries me most. Credit cards. We crossed $1 trillion in total credit card balances, and we didn't creep there slowly. Americans added more credit card debt in the last 4 years than they did in the entire decade after the 2008 financial crisis. Let that sink in. Over 600 million active credit card accounts in a country of 340 million people. Do the math on that. The average person is managing multiple cards, multiple minimum payments, multiple due dates, multiple interest charges quietly compounding in the background every single month. And the interest rates. The average right now is over 21%. I remember when I finally sat down and did the real math on one of my own cards. Not the minimum payment, not the balance, the actual cost if I kept paying the way I was paying. It was one of those moments where the room kind of tilts, because it didn't look like debt anymore. It looked like a trap I had willingly walked into.
Over 12% of credit card accounts are now in serious delinquency, the highest level since 2008. And here's what I got wrong for a long time. I thought people in financial trouble were there because of bad decisions, reckless spending, irresponsibility. That's the story we tell ourselves because it's comfortable. It keeps the problem at a distance. But most of the people I know who are struggling financially aren't struggling because they bought too many things they didn't need. They're struggling because rent went up, groceries went up, insurance went up, everything went up, and their paycheck just didn't move at the same speed. So they used credit to fill the gap, not to splurge, to survive. And then there's a whole new layer on top of all of this that didn't even exist 5 years ago in any real scale. Buy now, pay later.
Affirm, Klarna, all the apps with the soft colors and the friendly fonts that make borrowing money feel like a lifestyle feature. I've used them. I'm not judging anyone who has, but I want you to understand what's actually happening when you split that $80 purchase into 4 easy payments. You're being trained to normalize debt for things that used to just require having $80. 15% of Americans used Buy Now, Pay Later services in 2024. 40% of them regretted it when they saw the total cost. 24% made a late payment, up from 18% the year before. It's the same credit trap, just redesigned to feel like technology. So when you see headlines celebrating strong consumer spending, just pause for a second. Ask yourself what's fueling it. Because spending looks identical whether it's coming from real savings or from borrowed money. The headlines don't tell you which one it is. Here's what I've learned, not from textbooks, but from living inside this system and watching it up close. The first thing you have to do is stop pretending the minimum payment is a strategy. I did that for 2 years. The minimum payment is designed to keep you in the relationship with the credit card company as long as possible. Pay anything above it, even $20 more a month. It changes the math more than you think.
Second, figure out which debt is costing you the most. Not the biggest balance, the highest interest rate. That's the one bleeding you out the fastest. Attack it first. This is the thing I wish I had done, instead of spreading tiny payments across every account and feeling like I was making progress when I really wasn't. Third, stop using Buy Now, Pay Later for things that aren't worth the psychological weight of an open balance. I've watched people use installment plans for coffee, for takeout. At some point, the convenience becomes a habit, and the habit becomes a whole. And fourth, and this one's more personal, just get honest about what your actual number is. I avoided adding it all up for almost a year because I was scared of the total. But the number doesn't get smaller because you're not looking at it. It gets bigger. Knowing it is the only thing that gives you any power over it. I'm not here to tell you the economy is collapsing. I'm not building a bunker or telling you to panic.
But I am telling you that the growth story being sold to you every day on financial news has a part they're leaving out. The part where the growth is largely borrowed. The part where millions of households are one unexpected expense away from the delinquency statistics you just heard. The part where a 21% interest rate on $1 trillion in balances is a quiet catastrophe hiding behind a strong jobs report. The music is still playing. People are still dancing. But some of us have started to hear a different sound underneath it. And once you hear it, you can't really unhear it. The question is just what you're going to do about it before the song ends.